Good evening. I'd like to call the Planning Commission meeting for June 26th to order. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Here.
Commissioner Stoker.
Here.
Commissioner Chorin.
Here.
Commissioner Hawley.
Here.
Commissioner Gentes.
Here.
Commissioner Barnes. Commissioner Abani.
Here.
Alderman Stralchuk.
Here.
Mayor Nurbin.
Here. We have a quorum. First up is approval of the minutes from May 22nd.
Move approval.
Motion and a second. Any comments or corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? And the minutes are approved. First up, we have the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve in part or in whole?
Move to approve the consent agenda, assuming there's no tickets for people that want to speak.
There are none on those items, I don't believe. Motion and a second. Would you like to pull an item out, Commissioner Chorin? Oh, okay. Question.
Question about one of the items. Do I have to pull it out to do that?
Then let's pull it out and take it up separately, sure.
Concordia. Simple question to staff. I'm assuming the fire department reviewed, given the location of the building tucked in that alcove, the fire department has approved and reviewed it all?
They will have to approve the plans at a later date. They're invited to all of our staff meetings. They don't always show up, but they will get a set of the plans during the building permit stage to review and approve at that point.
Okay, if they review it, sign off, I'm
Yeah.
fine.
Okay, we don't have to pull that out anymore. Commissioner Barnes.
We can, if engineering has not looked at that particular issue, we can ask that the vision triangle is reviewed. Right.
I'll remind commissioners to push the button on the microphone to speak. Otherwise, the microphone won't pick you up too well.
Yeah, the fact that it would be an adjacent property, that might present a challenge, but if there is an issue, we'll explore options.
If there are any other comments, we'll take them at this time, comments or questions. Otherwise, we do have a motion and a second. Hearing and seeing no other comments, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? And that does it for the consent agenda. First up, next up, we've got public hearing items. First is Greg Adams. The applicant is seeking a conditional use grant approval to allow for a guest suite located at the property at 10906 North Lakeview Road. Is there a motion to go into public hearing? Motion and a second. All in favor of going into public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
We are now in public hearing. Is there anyone here tonight who wishes to speak on this item? Sir, please come to the microphone and state your name and address, and we'll put you in the record.
Good evening. 10928 North Lakeview. I'm Mr. Adams's neighbor to the north.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any comments? Or,
I'd like to voice my concern regarding the size of the building and the location. I realize he is within his rights, and I have no question with that, but it will affect the view that I'm going to face. There's a lot of windows on that side of the property, and I'm going to be staring at a huge blank wall, basically. So I would like the commission to consider that.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here who wishes to speak tonight? If not, is there a motion to close public hearing?
So moved.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of closing public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
And we're back. Maybe, given the concerns that were brought up, could we review maybe the setbacks and some of those technical standards?
The size of the structure and the setback are all compliant. There is an existing accessory structure as a shed to the front of the property. And that's being demolished so that there is only one accessory structure. This is a detached two-stall garage with a small open floor space. So technically, by definition, per the code, it is the guest house and requires the conditional use grant. The structure is a little bit taller than the 15 feet. It's like 15 feet, 3 inches, I think. But there's an increased setback on that north property line to allow and accommodate for that increased setback. So the structure complies with all of the technical and dimensional standards of the district.
Are there any other questions? Commissioner Chorin?
It has to go through the architectural board.
Correct.
Which could, respond to the comments made about, by the neighbor, correct?
Correct.
Maybe now that we're in regular session and not just public hearing, are there any additional details about the concerns? I mean, the building complies with the setbacks for the zoning district, so other than there being a building there now or in the future, but there isn't now, is there anything about the building in particular you're concerned about? Yeah, if you could come up to the podium. Just when it's public hearing, we can only listen, we can't respond.
Other than it being a rather large structure, almost the size of the original house, that I feel would definitely affect my property value in a negative way. So I understand the desire of my neighbor, and I understand he is perfectly within his rights, but I don't know what I can do in order to maybe ask him to kind of maybe move it in a different location. I don't know.
Okay, thank you. Maybe it's a good time for the applicant to respond. I don't know what the plans are for any landscaping along the back of the proposed building. I think, it meets all the technical standards. It's hard to find a reason to not support it on those merits, but. Oh, yeah.
Yes, at the time, there's no plans on doing any landscaping behind it between the building and the lot line. I'm open to considering moving it a little further west towards the road. I think that would alleviate some of his concern.
Okay, and from a staff perspective, if that
I'm not sure what's better or not.
if that moved, would we need to reapprove this, or? I'm assuming not. That's a kind of a detailed site plan. It would
Right,
come
you can
later?
give, this is not building and site plan approval, this is just the conditional use grant for the guest house. And certainly, if you note in the minutes that, there's some deviation in terms of that location, then that would give staff the authority.
Okay, thank you for that. Be useful information if a motion is made. Commissioner Strelchak.
Yeah, I just had a question based on the overview. Is the site within compliance? It looks like there's vehicles that are parked on the grass. Is that, I just want to make sure if we need to add a condition that vehicles and storage of other items would need to be either in the driveway or an appropriate area as a term to the approval.
You don't have to make that a formal condition, but you can. We can make sure with the property owner that everything's cleaned up during construction.
Yeah, we probably don't need to add a condition to follow our existing code.
No.
Commissioner, I'm drawing a blank. Stoker, I know your name, trust me.
I just want to clarify Commissioner Torrance' comment. The art board, there won't be any discussion about landscaping or anything else, purely the design of the building, et cetera. I assumed you knew that, but I wanted to make sure you understood that, so.
Does anyone have any other questions or perhaps conditions or a motion they'd like to make? Commissioner Schaefer.
I'll try to make a motion, but to incorporate the moving west. So I'm going to try to say it, and then you tell me if I say it right enough for what we're looking for. So I would move to approve per staff's conditions with the additional suggestion that as we work through the building and site plan, that there is some consideration given to the option of moving a little further west, as you suggested. I see on the plan that this is a little east of where the shed was, so perhaps moving it a little closer to where the demolished shed is. Is that right, Jack and Kim?
Yeah, I mean, it's a 50-foot setback there, so there's some play, it looks like.
Yeah, that's what I,
I will second that motion.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further comments or amendments that you'd like to make? Hearing or seeing none, please call the roll on this item.
Commissioner Hawley,
Aye.
Commissioner Gentes,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Aye.
Commissioner Stoker, Commissioner Bonney,
Aye.
Commissioner Chorin,
Aye.
Alderman Strelchek,
Aye.
Mayor Nurbin.
Aye.
Vote passes.
Thank you. Best of luck. Next up, we have Concord 22 LLC. The applicant is seeking a conditional use grant approval to allow for modifications on the operating hours for the addition of an outdoor seating for the property located at 11511 North Port Washington Road, Dunkin' Donuts. Is there a motion to go into public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're in public hearing. There are at least 2 people signed up in advance, so I'll call them. First up is Steve Richmond from 1611 West Eastbrook Court. Wishes to speak, does not indicate support or opposition.
Yeah, I'm an owner with the Eastbrook condominiums, which are adjacent to this project. About 11 years ago, there was some litigation when the Taco Bell came in. We were at that time opposed to it. We have an agreement with the developer, and we've agreed to the earlier hours which were requested. I guess the one question that we have, and also that we can convey to our owners, is what are the next steps here? I understand you were approving it, but I mean, I noticed there is, there's a discussion about parking and also about outdoor seating. And I didn't see anything in the materials in terms of exactly where the seating was going to be or how that was going to work. And so it's the next step for the developer then to flesh out the plans, or for Dunkin' Donuts to flesh out the plans, and then we would have an opportunity to see that and ask any questions about it at that point. Or what is the process here as this moves forward? And, we like the fact that Dunkin' Donuts is coming in. We prefer it to the previous tenant. And so, we just have some questions and just want to understand how things are working.
We can get to that in a moment when we close public hearing.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Next up is Bernie Burson. Did I get that wrong?
I think Steve covered it.
He covered it adequately?
That's right.
He covered it adequately?
I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Is this thing
One more
on?
time. What did you
Did he address your concerns adequately? Wish to
Well,
make no-
Steve covered it pretty well, what I was going to say basically also. We just want to make sure that everything is handled right, and the hours and the outdoor eating and all of that is taken care of properly, and that the city enforces things that aren't agreed upon, and that kind of thing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this item?
I'm here with the ownership group, the Duncan franchisee group. I'm here to answer any questions if I can. help.
Okay,
So
you can have a seat up there and we'll get to you in a second. Anyone else here from the public who wishes to speak? Hearing none. There we go. There's the motion and a second. All those in favor of closing public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now we're back in regular session. Maybe staff could just give an overview of the next steps and addressing some of those concerns about process and such.
Sure. I'll start with Jack has it up. That's great. I'll start with the outdoor dining. There is an outdoor plaza at the front end of the tenant space. This tenant space is the tenant space farthest to the south of the multi-tenant building. Taco Bell as well had outdoor seating available at that location. This accommodates about 22 outdoor seating spaces. The process ahead would be to finalize the conditional use grant document that gets signed by the city as well as representatives of Dunkin' Donuts and the property owner, and that gets recorded at the county. It's really very similar to the Taco Bell conditional use grant. Really the modification we're making is updating the floor plan that gets attached to the document and recorded as well, and then modifying the approved hours of operation should Planning Commission take that action tonight. Once the conditional use grant is recorded and any other plans per Planning Commission that have to be updated are submitted, approved by planning staff, then Dunkin' Donuts can move forward on their build out permits associated with the construction. And once that's achieved and everything is in compliance according to both Planning Commission approval and the construction permit plans, then they will be allowed to open. In terms of any compliance issues going forward, that's just something we keep our eye on all properties. And if we identify or hear of any potential violations, we would deal with that through the enforcement process.
Thank you. So is it fair to say that the outdoor seating is similar to what Taco Bell had before?
Yes.
If they would have had customers?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Schaefer.
Just confirming that the drive-through would not be utilized.
No, the drive-through is utilized, and there were
Only-
original conditions associated with the Taco Bell about speaker volume of the speakers, other enhancements or improvements that were required as part of the drive-through. I did confirm with the property owner, Concord, that all of those facilities are still in place and operable per those original conditions.
Taco Bell didn't strip it. So is it still at kind of the east end? It's hard for me to tell. This is the picture I'm looking at. On my packet
the
as well.
drive-through is behind the building, so on the east facade. And the tenant space is the very south tenant space. Oh, I'm sorry, west side, yes.
Your other east.
Yeah.
Tell how much I went to Taco Bell by not knowing where the drive-through actually even is.
Yeah, all the way. They've got it up on.
Act like Starbucks.
Correct. It's very much like Starbucks, if you're familiar with Starbucks. Commissioner Strelchak.
Yeah, my question is that you list as background item number 2, the delivery times and things like that, but it's not spelled out that clearly in staff conditions. Does that carry over? Should we add that as a condition? My biggest thing is I don't want to see like 4 a.m. deliveries because that,
Yeah,
and
that
garbage
carries-
pickup, which is going to be, real early. That's the one thing that residents will definitely understand and hear and object to. So I want to be cognizant of that.
Thank you. All of the original conditions of the conditional use grant remain in place, so those standards do remain.
Thank you. That's what I understood. I just wanted to make sure.
Very good. Any Commissioner Barnes?
Yeah, just one minor question. It's the wording in the condition 3 where it's stated that the attached conditional use grant are met, the proposal shall remain harmonious with the surrounding area. And I think there's been some discussion about that, but can you explain a little bit what you mean by harmonious with that?
Well, I think the hours of operation were one of the original issues, right? And we're addressing beyond just the hours of operation for Dunkin' Donuts. We're, in terms of customer traffic, we're addressing those other issues, including the deliveries and garbage. Some of those other conditions are related to the decibels that are allowed as part of the drive-through facility. And I'd have to look back at maybe some of the other ones. There is surveillance video that's required during business hours. That was an original condition of Taco Bell as well. And, you know, I guess one of the maybe unusual, but obviously worked through conditions of the original Taco Bell approval was that Eastbrook had the ability to consent to any extended or even change in hours during the evenings as well. Yeah.
I'd move approval.
I would second.
Motion and a second. Okay. Does the applicant care to say anything?
No, they explained it well.
Explained it
Just
well?
here
Okay.
to answer any questions, so we're
Okay.
excited to be here. Thank you.
Just wanted to ask before we get too close to a vote. Motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hawley,
Aye.
Commissioner Gentes,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Aye.
Commissioner Stoker, Commissioner Barnes, Commissioner Chorin,
Aye.
Alderman Stralchek,
Aye.
Mayor Nurbin.
Aye.
Vote passes.
Congratulations. Good luck. The next two items, I don't know that we need to open public hearing to table.
Yes, I think we want to have the hearings both held so that we don't have to hold them again next month.
Okay.
But we want to table both of those items.
Okay, so we'll open the public hearings, but the applicant has asked these to be tabled. So first is the annex at Foxtown. The applicant is seeking a conditional use grant for approval to allow for a distillery on the property located at 6375 West Mequon Road. Is there a motion to go into public
Move to
hearing?
go into public hearing.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. We're in public hearing. Is there anyone here tonight who wishes to speak on this item? Hearing and seeing none. Is there a motion to close?
Motion closed.
Motion and a second to close. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're back.
I mean, I guess I wasn't expecting the applicant to be here, so if they want to say anything at this point, they can. If not, we can.
Or if they want to reverse their decision to
Yes.
ask for tabling, we could do that too. Is it still your intention to have this item tabled?
Currently, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We can always pick it up. We can always pick it up again in the future, but at least we've had the public hearing.
Yes.
Okay. Is there a motion to table?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? And that item's tabled. Next up, FT1 LLC. The applicant is seeking conditional use grant approval to allow for a distillery for the property located at 11090 North Weston Drive.
Move to go into public hearing.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're in public hearing on this item now. Is there anyone here wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none, is there a motion to close?
Closed.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're closed. And is there a motion to table?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that item's tabled. We'll see you at an upcoming meeting, I'm sure. Thank you. Next up, we have a public hearing for Life Space Communities. The applicant is seeking a conditional use grant amendment and building and site plan amendment to allow for 13 carriage homes for the property located at 1070 through 1220 West Newcastle Place. Is there a motion to go into public hearing?
So moved.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are now in public hearing on this item. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak regarding the proposal by Life Space Communities? Hearing and seeing none, is there a motion to close?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second to close public hearing. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And we are back, and we'll take up this item at this time. Maybe a quick overview by staff.
Sure.
Thanks, Jack.
I have the, I just put the landscaping plan on the screen. It probably goes into detail of probably everything in the report that we can discuss. So as you can see, they're showing the carriage homes. This is Port Washington Road down here. So this is coming off the existing private drive, Essex Drive. So this will be a new road with the cul-de-sac with the units coming off that road. One of the conditions staff added was a sidewalk on one side of the street. There's every other of the cul-de-sacs and throughout the development there are sidewalks, and we feel that this should have a sidewalk as well. Since this is geared towards senior housing, we feel it's safer to have at least a sidewalk on one side to get to the main center of the building of the site. So we're adding a recommendation that there be a sidewalk on one side or the other, preferably on the west side. That it would probably come all the way basically to the end of this cul-de-sac and terminate there. Other conditions we added to the plans, you can see that there's some street trees located down here, and then there's also some pines here for screening. This is basically all autumn blaze maple, and there is some Black Hill spruce located here. So we'd like to see a variety of plants. We did make some suggestions in the report on the type of species that basically the Black Hill spruce is prone to fungus, so we made some recommendations on some species for that as well. I think there was an email that went to the mayor and one of the aldermen with regard to from the neighboring property who was asked about screening. This came up at Common Council, so we're asking for some screening around the cul-de-sac. As you can see, there's a retaining wall here, so we're asking for some evergreens to be planted along this elevation to protect the neighboring property. Other than that, the lighting plan, they're adding the same lighting that's located in the rest of the development. The buildings, there's 4 different building types with 4 different options for those building types. So there's 16 different options. They're all labeled on the plan. They're all right now as shown as different options. So there'll be a lot of variety into the design. Again, these are 1- and 2-family homes considered to be reviewed by the Architectural Review Board. So we're just reviewing the concept plan at this point. There is some issue with the wetland setback deviation. I could let Cole address that issue. And then finally, this came up at the rezoning as well. There's a large 45-inch oak tree here. We want to make sure that that's protected. So we'll have Mike Geese, our city forester, provide conditions with regard to protection of that tree during the construction of the development. So with that, we do recommend approval according to conditions in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. It looks like Cole's going to tell us about the wetland issue, potential wetland issue.
Yeah, the only thing that Jack brought up regarding the wetlands, there's a different setback on all 3 of those wetland pockets that you can roughly see on there. They're kind of gray. And those are also, I think I put the setbacks in here in the report. But talking with the developer, it sounds like those can be moved out of there without too much of a problem. So if that's the case, no amendments will be made to at least our suggested staff recommendations.
Okay, so you are able to adjust the footprints a little bit to
Yes, we
get back into
will agree
compliance?
to maintain the protective area, which will require us to move those buildings, but to not make any modifications or request any changes to the stormwater management plan.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you. Makes our job a little easier. Any questions or comments from the commissioners? Or if you'd like to
I was gonna
make a statement.
Yeah, I'm Fred Bursch. I'm here as the consultant to the project owner. Gary Duncan is in the back representing Life Space. I was going to have Kevin address the sidewalk, but the reason we would prefer to put sidewalk on the east side is because we have no other way of working around the tree that's there. I proposed tunneling through the tree, but I was told it's not a redwood, so we can't do that. So we are proposing the sidewalk on the east side of the road that would connect, it would terminate at about 10 o'clock on the cul-de-sac, up on the upper left of the cul-de-sac. That way we don't have any wetland issues, and it connects to the sidewalk that terminates right now at the stub street.
I think in exchange for saving the tree, it's a good trade.
Yeah, I guess I'm okay with that. I was concerned about the retaining wall issue there, but if they're gonna terminate it prior to the retaining wall, I guess it shouldn't be a big issue. There'd be only a handful of residents that would have to walk on the street to get to the sidewalk. The other option would be to have it basically terminate at this point and put a little small crosswalk and then carry around the other side as well. That's another option. Yeah, or have something in the island.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Two things. What is the assumption that the people on the west side will just cross the street and use this sidewalk? The people that don't have the sidewalk? I would as you know, I will prefer to save the tree, but why wouldn't you have sidewalk on both sides if there's houses on both sides?
Typically, with a lot of our developments, especially in the town center or even in central growth, we've only required it to be on one side. I mean, that's something that you want to make as a recommendation. It just makes the cross section a little tighter, having sidewalk on both sides.
Yeah, I'm not terribly fussed about it. I just didn't. I guess perhaps I haven't noticed that before. And then, I don't think I'm familiar with that upper corner. What is the neighbor that we're shielding? That we're trying to?
So basically,
is it a residence or?
No,
is it
well,
business?
I think there's a residence on there, but here it's on the screen. You can see this is the Liebau pump. So that's his parcel right here.
Yeah.
As you can see, the earlier phases, there's some landscape screening that they provided, and then this is basically the property line. So this area here is the wetland. It's got a lot of trees. There's also trees here. So the only place I thought would be appropriate, the road will be basically here with that little retaining wall. So right along this line, maybe something we would provide screening, but I don't think there should be anything else up in this area because there's really nothing to screen up in that area.
Not from. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Strelchak.
I think the plan that came forward is great. It's high end, just like the rest of the development. I'm really pleased to see it. I'm comfortable. I had the same question about the sidewalk on both sides. You know, with senior living, why wouldn't you put it on both sides? But in looking at the aerial Google Map overview, it is on one side, and many of the other spaces, and the interconnectivity looks like it aligns really well, and it's logical and well thought out. I'm assuming that this one would be the same. I would prefer to see it in the cul-de-sac with a crosswalk so that people can walk out in front. You know, as you know, some people, it might be a couple in there. One can get around really well. Another one might be in a walker, as was the case with my grandparents when they lived in that facility. And I think that sidewalk benefit versus, you know, just the city street to cross over to the sidewalk would be helpful if the applicant's open to it.
Yeah, Kevin says he can make that work. He had the problem with the retaining wall, as Jack mentioned also, so we'll bring that around to the farthest south home.
I just think it's continuous with the rest of your property, so that's a great thing that you're willing to do. Thank you.
Well, go ahead. It's always appropriate to make a motion.
I'll make a motion for approval with the condition that the sidewalk get added to that cul-de-sac and the applicant work with staff to come to an agreeable terms for that.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? Commissioner Chorin.
The understanding is that the other sidewalk would be on the east side, correct?
On the east side, per the applicant's request to save the tree, yes.
Seeing and hearing no other comments, please call the roll.
Commissioner Barnes? Commissioner Chorin?
Aye.
Commissioner Hawley?
Aye.
Commissioner Gentes?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Aye.
Alderman Stralchuk?
Aye.
Mayor Nurbin?
Aye.
Vote passes.
Thank you. Best of luck. Next up, we have another public hearing for North Shore Country Club. The applicant is seeking a conditional use grant and building and site plan amendment approval to allow for outdoor pavilion with beverage and food service for the property located at 3100 West Country Club Lane. Is there a motion to go into public hearing?
So moved.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? We are now in public hearing. We have, I think, 4 people registered to speak, so we'll take them in order. First is Carrie Meskin, opposes and wishes to speak from 10402 West Greenside Court.
Hi, so my family and I are residents of North Shore Estates, and the country club exists in the center of our neighborhood. Since we've lived here, the club has generally existed in harmony with the neighborhood, but I just have a couple concerns regarding the expansion of amenities. First, we have a couple of safety concerns. There's been, some concerns brought up at our annual meetings regarding speeding through the neighborhood, and I'm concerned that adding alcohol services may exacerbate this issue and the concern. All of the traffic is shunted through the neighborhood roads into the central neighborhood entrance of the club. And then another concern that we have is the encroachment into the neighborhood beyond club property. The lights and the noise for the club already carry beyond the property line, so I'm a little skeptical that the addition of more outdoor space will be able to be containing the noise as proposed. And then finally, despite the best efforts of the club to curb this, it's become a regular occurrence for members to park along the section of Country Club Drive adjacent to the pool and tennis courts and pickleball courts. And this is happening not just when there's events where the parking lot is full, but also when the parking lot is available, just out of convenience for the membership. So despite the addition of no parking signs that have been put up, there's still people as recently as last week parked up and down Country Club Drive. And so I think it's reasonable to expect, if we're expanding the amenities without adding parking to the picture, that this encroachment may expand towards Rangeline Road and the adjacent neighborhoods to that new area. So I would just like to see more progress made on addressing these current issues before considering this like a harmonious and compatible use with the neighborhood that it's located in. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, we have Jeff Tunney, supports and wishes to speak, supports conditionally, from 3110 West Valley View Court.
Hi, good evening. Yep, I just live in the subdivision as well, and I share the same concerns regarding our main concern as property owners in North Shore Estates is speeding through the coming out of the club and going down Country Club Drive. I'm supporting this mainly because personally I feel like the club's success is going to just help the homeowners in that subdivision as well. So my understanding, and I don't have all the details yet, I think we do that after this open session, but is that the club isn't expanding. They're not allowing more members. So this, they already have a bar there. I really don't think that what they're proposing from the limited information that I have so far is really going to exacerbate the problems that we've got with traffic. So I'm just in favor of it from the standpoint of making the club as successful as possible. That's all.
Thank you. Next, we have Robert Heinrich, opposes, wishes to speak, from 3118 West Ridgeline Court.
Thank you. This stack of papers is not related to this, so it'll be like 4 sentences, I swear. The country club is really good neighbors. We've been there 20 years on Ridgeline Court. The noise from events over the last 2 or 3 years has been increasing. And so we just worry that the noise from this new addition will be leaking even more noise into the neighborhood, both frequency and volume of the noise. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Kathleen Schneider, who wishes to speak, 10424 North Country Club Drive.
Good evening, everybody. I'm actually the aldermanic representative from District 7. So I have some comments that mainly came to me from my constituents that they weren't all able to be here this evening. First of all, I'd like to say that North Shore Country Club is thriving, and we want thriving businesses in Mequon, certainly. It's also evolving, which businesses do. It's been there for a very long time, and things are changing, which is always a little challenging. But particularly challenging for the neighbors, and most challenging, if you look at the schematic up there, if you see where the tennis courts are, these folks right across the street from the tennis courts, now pickleball, are probably most affected by the parking and the noise, because the pool is also there, so many people live close to the fairway, but these people that actually live in Way Acres are right across from a lot of the noise action. In reference to the speeding, and I would say erratic driving, and I won't say ascribe it to any one issue, but there can be some erratic driving as well as speeding. I've gotten complaints both from the people on West Country Club, which is the horizontal there, and some of the folks that are off North Country Club and the cul-de-sacs around there. They have small children and they're worried about people speeding. It would be 25 miles an hour, and it's not being that speed. I want to explain also that the Country Club has been contacted, and they've been very helpful in trying to work on this issue with their members. They have put up signage, they've put things in the news bulletin, they put a speed bump inside their property at one point to right at the exit to try to keep people from blasting out quickly. I've asked for the police department to do some directed enforcement in that area, but I expect this will be something we need to continue to address, and any other facility that draws people into having a good time outside drinking could certainly exacerbate that problem. With regard to the noise, there at one point and for many decades was a row of Austrian pines along the edge of where the pool and the tennis courts are, which were huge trees in close proximity to one another and gave a really nice noise visual buffer to the neighbors. They had to be removed, and initially were not going to be replaced, but Jack worked with the country club because we do need to have a buffer there, and some trees were replaced. They will never be the kind of intense buffer that existed, but they will grow. So people are perceiving more noise, and it might be partly related to the fact that it's been converted from tennis courts to pickleball in a couple of those courts, which is a more impactful noise to residents than tennis. Additionally, the country club put some chairs and tables between those tennis courts and the street, so now people are kind of encouraged to be chatting along the roadside. So for the neighbors that live in these houses right across the street, that makes them perceive more noise than they had previously. There have been a couple isolated incidences. There is amplified music at the pool, by the way. It's at low volume. It's not supposed to be heard by the neighbors, but occasionally it's not turned off at night, so it's supposed to be off by 10 p.m., and we've had a few incidents of that. The parking issue has been a recurrent problem, in my view, better than it was. There was a city sign there that had gone by the wayside that I was able to get replaced, and the North Shore Country Club has put some small signs along there, and they've also notified people in their member bulletin, et cetera. There is no parking on Mequon streets, as you know, so it would be an enforcement issue, except that I do not want to be bothering the police officers with people parking on the streets. And it is not related to the fact that the country club does not provide adequate parking. It is related to people who are there to work out who do not feel like walking an extra step by going to the parking lot and then having to walk to the pickleball and tennis courts. So it is something that is fixable, and it needs kind of attention all the time. I just wanted to say one other thing about lighting, because I know there will be some lighting, 70-watt bulbs, and farther from the street than this current issue that I'm going to tell you about right now, but I want to address it because the neighbors asked me to. The tennis courts have poles that are 40 feet high, which is not standard. Usually in residential areas, they're 25 feet. So because of their extra height, they emit light further out into the neighborhood than would be the case with a normal residential tennis court. In 1981, the country club was able to get a variance so they could have these tall poles. Now, recently, they're switching out the light bulbs in these poles. It might be LED lights or something. The perception from the neighbors is that these are brighter. And so it's with the loss of those trees, the change in the light bulbs, they're perceiving light pollution in their houses in the evening. These courts, the lights stay on until 10 p.m. And I have not been able to determine, in spite of good efforts on my part, what is the lumens or wattage of these new bulbs. The previous ones were 1,000 watts, so not any small amount of light. But I would love to know what the new ones are to determine whether it's just a change in color tone that's making people think they're brighter or if they're in fact brighter. Given all this background information, the people that have been contacting me are concerned about another foci of noise, lighting, people that might not drive carefully, and speeding. So I just wanted to put that in the record so that it's for some background information as you make this decision, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here who wishes to speak? You certainly don't have to fill out a yellow card. You can come up and speak at this time. If there's no other takers, is there a motion to close? Yep. Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And we are back. That was a lot to unpack. Thank you, Alderwoman Schneider, for giving some of the background. I mean, some of it's good to know, but I think we'll have to compartmentalize stuff with the pickleball courts because they're not completely germane to this approval. But maybe there's a longer-term issue we can work on with the lighting. So any comments or questions on the proposal at hand? Commissioner Hawley.
Is there any plans to have like outdoor music or a band or anything like that for the bar? Do I have to turn this on? Is it on?
You have to. I think you have to push and hold. If the green light's on, it's good.
It's green.
Yeah.
It's green.
You're gonna have to pull it closer to. Be effective.
So there is currently the patio that's back there, just adjacent to the new bar, has acoustic music every Friday and Saturday night. So it is the same. It is planned for the same there. So it'll either be on the deck or be at that place. But yeah, they're right next to each other. So Friday and Saturday evenings, acoustics.
And then on the map, someone have a laser pointer so we can point at where this is on the picture.
The facility will be going in this general area back here. So it's roughly about 450 feet from the nearest residence.
And then it's facing back into...
It'll open to the course.
Yeah.
So it's basically on a northeast trajectory, basically.
And you can point out the deck, right? There's already a deck on that back part, and so the new bar would be facing it. They're all kind of facing the same direction in the back.
And we have had some residents call about the project, obviously, and when we told them we have live music now, they're like, we had no clue.
Yeah, as you can hear from Kathleen, we have had numerous complaints over the years. Most of them recently have been with regard to the pickleball and the trees and the parking. In the past, we have gotten complaints about some of the amplified music. They are allowed to have a certain amount of, I think it's 4 events per year, amplified music till 10 p.m., but the rest of the time they're not allowed to have any amplified music. So what we did here is the same conditions we placed on the pool itself, which says that the pool can't have amplified music, and if it's audible from any of the residential property lines, it is a violation. The hard part is just enforcing that and going out and, at 10 o'clock at night, you'd have to have the police out there. But we did try to limit the exposure to the noise as much as possible by limiting it to just background music, to say similar to what the pool is. And the pool is actually closer to the residential property lines than this structure will be. With regard to the lighting, they are requesting string lighting as part of this, and we don't allow string lighting unless the Planning Commission approves an exception. We've seen a lot of recent development, town center development, Spur 16, Foxtown. So we basically place the same conditions at 70 lumens per bulb and no flashing or moving lights, so that kind of would help alleviate. I don't think from where this is going to be, you're going to be able to see those string lights from any residential property.
It's pretty much facing away from them,
right?
behind
Yeah,
the building.
and then there's buildings in the way, and then you have the pools in between. The issue with the tennis court lights, I'm sure they went to an LED, and I'm sure it's probably a different color rendition, so probably from a 3,000K to a 4,000K or something like that. But we can have Scott go out there. We can verify. The old lights, I'm sure, were metal halide or mercury vapor, some other type of luminaire. But we can kind of look at that. But we don't really regulate color rendition in our code in terms of this. Most nowadays, all our outdoor sports structures have to meet a certain requirement that basically just allows them to have enough light to play safely. Some of the lighting that you see on some of the other fields are over illuminated for television purposes, but since obviously we won't have that here, we want to just make sure it's illuminated for safe play, but not too much. But when this was approved back in the day, there wasn't a lot of technical level detail that was provided at the time. So, but we can verify that there is no trespass off the property. That's relatively easy to do. But you will still see a glare from a neighboring property. I don't think you can avoid that on a 40-foot light.
Perhaps we make that someone could make that as a condition of approval for that to be reviewed by staff. So there's something in there.
Looks like 2 on each side, 4.
I'm just suggesting someone consider it. Because I do think we need to address a little bit of what's going on in the broader site as a whole, and certainly the parking on the road. That's a police department issue, but we're not well equipped to deal with it always. But I would encourage anyone who observes it to report it, because then it will get attention. Because if you call, they will respond.
The country club actually did approach us at one point to see if they could do angle parking in this area between the road and the street along here, and we said, I don't think that's going to fly. So I think
you're right.
I think it's clear to them that at this point that the parking is an issue, and hopefully they can pay better attention to it at this point.
Well, we'll find a way to keep a better eye on that going forward, because there's no parking on city streets, and certainly it's one thing if you're just having a couple people over, you can call the PD, but we're not encouraging people en masse to park on the streets anywhere. That's a little more than I think the neighbors can deserve to take. And regarding there's already a bar inside. It's not an expansion of the use. It's all operated under the same permits, I would assume.
Correct. This is here, and I have a picture of the rendering of the structure. This is to serve its existing members. I think there is also parking capacity on site. I think also I agree with Kathleen that people are just wanting to have a shorter walk to the pickleball court, so I don't think there should be a need for additional parking on the site. They're not trying to attract the public to this facility. And it's open only from May 15th to October 15th. So this is just to basically serve the members outside in a nicer environment during the summertime hours.
Thank you. Just wanted to clarify that. Any questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Chorn.
Well, I think you've addressed the parking count. That's not an issue. This addition does not alter their parking count nor increase the requirement, correct?
Correct.
And kind of a side note with regarding to the lighting and the color temperature, I think the city should look at that. If you remember back, there was some issue about the lighting up at the Ascension facility up on Port and Highland. The higher the color temperature, the whiter it is, and I think that's the issue that people are stumbling around with or having issues with. So I don't know how you address that, or...
Yeah, we can adjust it through our lighting code. The issue was when we last modified our lighting code, LEDs were kind of in its infancy, and most of the stuff was coming at 4,000 or 5,000 K. Now they've gotten a little bit better with it, so now we can look at that and make some changes to that. But that's something we can address holistically through the changes in the lighting code.
Is that a Chapter 58 item?
Correct, yes.
So this body could take that up in the future.
Correct.
I think that's a good suggestion, because it's becoming more and more prevalent, and it does... the whiter light looks a little more harsh, and this is at least the second time we've heard it, to your point, and we'll probably continue to hear it. Okay.
I've also adjusted the timing so the lights go off at 9:30. So middle of summer, it's really not even that dark until around that time. So they don't go off at 10 any longer. They go off at 9:30.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any other questions? Commissioner Strelchek.
Just a couple comments, because we, as Alderwoman Schneider brought up, I mean, obviously we want the site in compliance, you know, as we're looking to approve other things, and we want to be respectful to the neighbors. In District 1, we had Villita Park, and I was part of, you know, working through that, and it was a lot of listening to, you know, what the residents had to say, and really embracing the, you know, the country club and sharing with them the findings and allowing them and enabling them to, you know, make sure that they worked with their members to keep the enforcement where it needed to be. It's sounding a lot like the parking issue is a member issue, so I would respectfully request that you recommend to your members that they park in that lot, and although it is a tap on city resources to have the police go out and ticket cars on the street that should be in a lot, I would encourage residents to reach out if they're parked there, and if they get ticketed enough times, they'll choose that that's maybe not a wise place to park, and the lot might be better for them. They're going to an athletic facility. You know, it's not as if they're, you know, having a trouble walking the distance or exercising it at some point in time. I'm okay with the string lighting. I do want to address the fact as to why I'm okay with the string lighting. The way that the building is positioned, you know, I feel I was really pleased to see this. This is what I thought I was reading, and then staff's confirmation as to the direction that it was facing into the golf course is going to be the most peaceful for neighbors. If they do have outdoor music that's on that patio anyway, this building will actually act as a buffer to, you know, minimize the sound that's going out, and it'll be projected out into the course and not towards the nearby neighbors. So that's great. The same thing with the string lighting. I don't feel the string lighting is going to be visible from the street. I'd ask that they try to make it not as visible to the street. If you see a couple bulbs, you know, anyone that's listening here that's hearing this, if you see a few bulbs or, you know, a small portion of the string, you know, I don't know that that's a violation of what I'm asking for here, but, you know, it is definitely a reason why I'm okay with, you know, the string lighting and allowing an exception to our city rules on string lighting. So that was great. I also wanted to, you know, thank the country club for coming forward and constantly investing in their property and in their membership. I've seen what happens to country clubs that don't succeed. I know the country club environment is a very challenging one right now, keeping members interested and you know, excited about coming and spending time there, and more importantly, spending money at the club. I know outdoor dining, if you've got some kind of heating elements and things out there, you know, a nice fall day where you get to relax, enjoy a glass of wine. I could see this as a space that if I was a member where I'd want to spend some time and enjoy it. So I'm pleased to see that you're taking that step forward for your membership and the community. It's a great asset. You know, that being said, this is a neighborhood country club. You know, at every step of your way, please be respectful to the neighbors surrounding you, and as well as you know, create enthusiasm with your members to, you know, spend time at the club and park in the lot. Right? Yeah. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Hawley, or Schaefer, sorry.
I'm struggling just a little with kind of the idea of it being of the slippery slope. So kind of the original comments about that there's multiple existing issues. I don't disagree that the placement is ideal. If you're going to build something, that's the right place to build it for it to be minimally impactful to the neighbors while still, it looks like a lovely rendering. And I'm not fully baked here. I'm trying to figure out how we incorporate some of these other issues into a motion. And I think, Mayor Nurbin, you said originally we had to kind of compartmentalize, and yet it does feel like this is an opportunity to try to include some of these items in a motion. The parking, to me, that's not a city issue. That's a membership. That's an entitlement issue is what it is. But and I'm sure you've tried to enforce it, and perhaps it has to be some additional consequences, which is not fun for you to do your members, but also there's an expectation. I don't think it should be a drain on city resources to police the parking on that street. I would say hard pass to that. I think that's something that the country club would probably be the right, the direction would have to come, and the enforcement would have to come more from you. So how do we best, I guess what I'm asking the commission is how do we best incorporate some of these other items in our motion? Can we do that?
Do you want to help me craft a motion? So I'd make a motion for approval with a condition that the lighting is reviewed, as well as the applicant work with city staff to go through the tree screening for noise along, seeing as the Austrian pines were there and they provide a better buffer than is there currently, just a review with city staff. If city staff feels that it gets approved as is, or if there's additional screening that they would like to see to address some of the ongoing noise issues and maybe make parking on the street a little less convenient to walk right to the courts. But the lighting being the biggest concern, for me, is from a compliance standpoint. I don't know that we can legislate on or require, we can respectfully request them to send out a memo to membership asking them to not park on the street, but I don't know that
Sounds
there's
like
anything
that's been
that this body can really require them to do,
I think
beyond what we've
It
asked.
sounds like they have done that. The
Yeah.
problem is they don't statutorily have any authority to write tickets on our right-of-way.
Right.
That unfortunately is the sole responsibility of the police department. And I don't like that either because they've got
It's
better
not-
things to do.
Yeah,
but
they have a lot better things to do than that.
if they go out there and do it a few times, it will find a way of stopping too. So as much as I don't want them doing that, I'm happy to have them do that if it takes care of a problem the neighbors are having. So, and they're happy to help. It's maybe not their most favorite thing to write some parking tickets, but they'll go do it. Well, that was the beginning of a motion. Review of the lighting and
Reviewing
the
the lighting.
landscaping plan along.
The landscaping plan along the
Along the
courts.
Courts.
Can I address the landscaping issue just a little bit? So there were the row of pines there that were all diseased. It was difficult for us to get the country club to act in a timely manner, getting a replacement plan. We finally did get to that point, but we did not want to see a monoculture because we did not want to see them removed like they were just there before. And these were planted probably in the 60s, so they had 50, 60 years of growth to them. And the ones that were replaced are obviously not going to get there for a long time. But we also did, I worked with our city forester. We only screened up till the end of basically to the end of the tennis courts. We did not provide screening along the golf course because it's already green. But we did mix in some deciduous and some evergreens there. So we worked with a plan now. So we got to a point where we felt we could push them as far as we could. The problem was that those trees were actually installed prior to the country club even being created. And when they proposed the tennis courts, they were already probably 20, 30 feet high. So there was no condition saying you need to screen them because they already had screening there. So it was, we pushed it as far as we could, but there was no approved plan at the time that said you have to have, Austrian pines every 20 feet. So we did work with them as best we could. Now, if the commission feels that what's out there now is inadequate, we can review that and look for spots where we could add additional plantings in there. But I think that should be the genesis of your motion, because we've already reviewed that with the applicant, and we feel that what was done there was adequate now. But if you don't feel that way, then I would just look for a motion to add additional screening in pockets, if that's what you want to do.
If the screening's not down past the pickleball courts, I'd like to see that as part of my motion be addressed.
Do you want to extend it further towards the east?
Not much beyond the pickleball courts, maybe,
There's three
just a
down
little
there.
bit.
There's a bundle of 3 on the east side of the pickleball courts corner. So if you move your marker about 5 more inches.
Yeah, it goes
Right
about
about there.
It goes about to here right now.
Yeah.
The original line of pines went from here all the way back to almost the road. I think I'll probably even show you on a previous ortho. Yeah, you can see here, this is what the change was. So you can see how big and such a buffer that was there. And then if you go to 2020 from 2015, it's gone. But again, those were all
Huge
diseased.
difference. But also, cannot be replicated just by
planting new ones.
Things have to grow.
Yes.
Ugh.
I think you're simply asking that staff review the landscape with the country club and see if there's opportunities to fill in some of the pockets.
Yeah, I would just like to have a little bit more teeth to it so that.
Because you've already done that?
Because I think the last time I had to show them that there was a requirement that they had to replace them, and it was basically a one sentence in an old report that says the landscaping plan was approved as is, and that's all I had to go by because there was nothing. I mean, I can show you the ortho from 1962 where it was just a little row of pines that were probably 3 feet tall, and there wasn't even a course there yet. So that's how long they've been there. So
are you connected to the internet, Jack?
yes.
It's very useful to bring up Google Street View, because then we can all see what it actually looks like, because many of us don't drive by here every day.
Sure, I can get that on there for you. I'm just going to find my bearings. So this is the recent planting. This is a view from 2022, and I assume there's older dates. So this is what it was before. So like I said, these are 40 feet high and along the whole entire line, but this is, again, a number of years worth of growth.
Yeah, it's a drastic change.
I mean, even this is 07 basically. This is before the disease probably started taking place. So if you're looking at adding some pockets in there, we can add definitely some pockets there, but we did not want to see a monoculture of just straight pine trees throughout the whole section. But you're going to have to add a really significant number of trees to even have a dent in filling in that buffer. I mean, these things are 7 feet tall right now, as you see them on the plan, and obviously they look dwarf compared to what was there before.
Well, you can't plant them so close together they have no room to grow up properly.
Right.
So there's you're never going to get that same effect. But
Right.
it seems like if we're encouraging people to be on the south side of that and the 4 little chairs or the grouping of chairs and tables, we should probably screen that area a little more. There's basically nothing there. And I'm not sure when that was added or under what approval that was added, but
Are you talking about further
The
down
outdoor
here?
seating?
the outdoor seating, I'm looking at it on my
This
screen.
section here, this was there was no formal approval ever given to that. So if that's an area that you want to see better screened,
And I'm just curious why there and not on the opposite side, interior to the golf course.
There's no pavement there.
There's
So
no-
the other side, it lines right up to you'll get hit by a golf ball.
and
What
they did
about on the parking lot side? I know I've sat there.
I was gonna say, there's seating there on the parking
So
lot
could
side
that,
too.
could it all, I mean, I know it's far, but
100%. Members just asked for some seating out there, and we threw some extra tables out there. That can be
Yeah.
adjusted with no problem.
And they did request some gazebos in this area too, but they wouldn't be able to meet our setbacks, so they were not allowed to do that as well.
Flip it around to the other side of the street so I can see the landscaping of the actual homeowner side. Because I feel like that's very dense, that most of those people planted screening trees. So from an aesthetic, I don't think they're seeing it. We're trying to use plants to get rid of sound. I just don't see the benefit. I can't consciously require the country club to plant trees to try and mitigate sound. I think the bigger issue is, are they putting up too much sound? To me. Trees are not sound at all.
And those trees were so dead, they were not blocking sound. Let's be honest.
Does that alter your motion in any way?
we're talking through it.
I see your point. There's lots of lush vegetation on the other side of the street. It's just encouraging people to gather and chit chat there. Maybe they'll probably tend to go over towards the bar.
I would be supportive of some small 4-foot, some sort of screening just right up tight against the concrete to shield that. But as far as, I wouldn't sit here and, I would not be supportive of forcing the country club to add 60 more trees. I think that's ridiculous.
I agree. And that wasn't the intent of my motion. I just wanted to add a little bit additional screening.
Jack is looking for clarification.
So screen the seating area or move the seating area.
Whichever.
Either is an acceptable solution.
Jack, are we able to do that?
And then review the lighting.
Yeah, you can add landscape there. We just couldn't add any structures there, but we can add landscape.
If we did
there.
like a fence, could we do that?
You could do a 4.5.
It's a different ball of wax.
Right, I know, that's what we're trying to figure out how to, exactly that point.
I think it would probably be better served to use some sort of berming and some lower shrubs or something like that to screen that than a fence. Because even if there's a fence, we're going to want something on the other side of the fence to soften the fence up, and then you're adding it anyway. So I would probably suggest maybe like a 2 or 3 foot berm there with plantings on top of it. That would probably provide you enough screening of that area.
A berm would work for sound too.
A little, yeah.
A berm would work better for sound.
Yeah.
Depending on
But
how
I
high
think the bigger issue is not just this spot or that side. It's consistent efforts to block sound, noise, and
I think this is
Light.
probably the most
light pollution.
egregious area from the neighbors' concern, because from what I've been told by numerous neighbors, that the pickleball, these used to be clay tennis courts, so the sound of the pickleball is much louder than the sound of the clay, as well as just a regular tennis court, non-clay court. So I think we could focus more on this area than the rest of it because of the pickleball noise.
So review the lighting and add screening in the pickleball area per staff's approval. Is that acceptable to the applicant?
Assuming all their staff recommendations.
Always.
I didn't know if you said that. I would second that motion.
Yeah, it's separate. The parking and the erratic driving is still a concern, right? When you're a neighbor.
Well,
but I know we can't. I hear it.
Yeah, I agree. That's a separate issue with enforcement, and not every neighborhood has a country club in the middle of it, but every neighborhood has that same problem with erratic drivers and speeders.
I think it'd be beneficial, the fact that we're having this at an open meeting and discussing it, because I think maybe it felt it was just coming from staff, that some of the complaints that we were getting involved. Now that you have at least 2 aldermen and the mayor recognizing this and the commission discussing this, maybe the country club will understand this is a significant issue and do a better job policing it because of this hearing. So I think it does help. If not, I mean, eventually, if it came to a point, you could always have a revocation hearing on the conditional use, which I think we wouldn't want to get to that point, but there's always that possibility if it doesn't get better.
Fair enough.
Alderman Strelchek and I were discussing another idea regarding the traffic. I don't know if you'd be willing to put a digital speed sign on the road to remind people, patrons, of their speed as they're exiting, because people do tend to blow out of there.
I mean, I have put the no parking signs up.
Yeah.
I have offered to pay for children at play signs through the HOA. And I talked to the city about possible speed bumps, but I understand they're like, we can't put them on some roads and not others. I mean, I'm trying. I even, again, tried to put the children at play signs up and offered to pay for them with the HOA, and then they didn't follow through. So I'm doing everything I can. I'm sending emails out. I'm out there.
The problem is
yelling at
people tend to ignore the signs that are already there.
Yeah.
And speed bumps make people speed worse. They slow down for the speed bump, and they speed more to make up for the time they perceive that they lost. And they destroy plow blades. And they are loud.
I think the motion as it sits is where I want to be.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, let's call the roll on this item too.
Commissioner Hawley.
Aye.
Commissioner Gentes.
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Aye.
Commissioner Stoker. Commissioner Barnes.
Aye.
Commissioner Chorin.
Aye.
Alderman Stralchek.
Aye.
Mayor Nurbin.
Aye.
Vote passes.
Thank you. Next, we have our regular business. First up is the Enclave. Applicant is seeking a final plat and open space plan amendment approval for 12 lots for the property located at 7901 Preserve Parkway, Phase 4 of the Enclave.
Yes, normally this would probably be a relatively innocuous approval. There's just one issue that came up, so I just want to get this in front of the commission. So basically, the open space plan, which was originally approved, I have up on the, oh, no, actually, this is the current one. Let me zoom in on this one a little bit better. So this is the original plan for the open space, and as you can see, the original plan had the path basically crossing a wetland with a boardwalk and then coming around here and then crossing a wetland back and then wrapping around. So the applicant is requesting to modify the plan to keep it out of crossing the wetland and then having it basically circular here and here. And this is how it was actually constructed when we went out and did our review prior to the meeting. So they originally requested that they would not utilize this crossing and have this open space area to be accessible by the residents. But there is one concern that we figured out later, which I'll get to from the map. There's a subdivision just to the south, if you may recall, the Burr Oak Estates, which was approved probably about a year ago for a rezoning. They are basically this parcel here, and as you can see, the area we're talking about is basically here. Their path actually comes up along this point and crosses right here. So that path would dead end basically, not have a place to go. So I spoke with the applicant. Sounds like they're open to allow for just one crossing of the boardwalk. Either one, I guess, from our perspective, doesn't matter. One of the two crossings have the boardwalk in, and then have a natural path to this area that will eventually tie in to the path that goes to south. So that way, if somebody is in Burr Oak Estates, they can walk up through here, and they can cross the path, and they can take this pathway all the way up to basically Mequon Road. So I think they're agreeable to that. There was also a condition in there. Some of the they're still waiting on some back orders on their gazebo and some of the other open space features. We did put in a condition they had to be in by the time the plat got recorded. So other than that, and then the street trees will they work to deal with our city forester to put the trees in fall because this is not the best time to be planting street trees. So that's a condition of approval as well. So we're supportive of the overall plan now that we have kind of agreed on this connection area. So we recommend approval according to conditions in the report.
I turned myself off. Any comments or questions from the commission? Motion and a second. Any last call on comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? And that item is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly, we have the tile shop. The applicant is seeking a building and site plan amendment approval for the property located at 11048 Northport Washington Road.
So again,
this one as well?
This one started off as a relatively small request originally. This is for the tile shop who will be taking the place of the old DSW. Those of you familiar with that area, that was that little northern complex that included DSW, Bed Bath & Beyond, who also went out, and then there's also Cycle Bar and the Martinizing facility that's there. So the original request that came in was for basically a loading dock in the rear and some modifications to the back area to allow semis to go through that area. So staff had numerous discussions with them, and we wanted to see a change to the front. The parking lot's in poor shape. It's got some poor circulation. It doesn't meet our front green space requirements. So working with them, they did come up with an alternative plan for the parking lot layout, and they're planning on phasing that in, as well as the building itself. The building itself was not remodeled as part of the previous approval that we did for the rest of the pavilion, so it is a little tired and out of date. So they're also suggesting that they would modify that as we go through the phasing of the development. So just trying to get to the rendering in there. I'm not sure where. So this is what the top one looks, kind of what it looks like now, and then the bottom one would have some of the same elements that were incorporated into the design that was done back in 2019, I believe. So, so the only discrepancy that staff has in their conditions, the phasing plan would be that the tile shop, and there's a phasing plan in here, the tile shop would be done, the parking lot and the facade improvements to the tile shop would be done at the same time with the tile shop. And then they had a condition in there that the martinizing and the cycle bar area would be done no later than 2024, and then the Bed Bath & Beyond site would be done when they had an executed lease. I think staff wants to see a time frame end on that, so we basically made a condition that said that if it's not, there's not an executed lease by that same August 2024 date, they have to do it at that time as well. And then there was some issue with some of the landscaping they showed them, and again, there was some monoculture with regard to species of the plantings, and so we're recommending that that get sent back to staff for review and approval of some changes to that landscaping plan as well. So overall, we're supportive of the efforts that they're trying to improve the facility, and I think now that we've kind of hammered through some of these details, we're in a position that we could recommend approval. There is some changes that we're looking to do with regard to the Culver's entranceway, but that's going to involve Culver's cooperation, so we'll attempt to do that. It's shown on the plan, but we can't guarantee that portion of it if Culver's doesn't want to participate in that that venture. So we do recommend approval of the project according to the conditions in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Chorn.
The existing parking layout is awful. I mean, it's confusing. And Jack, can you pull up the existing? I was a little confused with the existing. You had a certain number of rows, and then when you convert it to 90-degree parking, you kept the same number of rows. I found it a little hard to understand how, with angled parking in the original and 90-degree in the new, something had to give. I mean, I think, I don't know if the aisles got narrower.
I have this is the current layout of there, and as you know, I do agree 100%. It is kind of chaotic. There's a one-way down here. There's a two-way here, which is angled. There's a two-way. This is a one-way, and then there's another two-way with angled, and then there's another one-way, and then none of them line up with the entranceways as well. So I did have that same concern and question, but I looked at their plan and I scaled it, and they do meet our minimum widths for the aisles and the spaces. So I think part of the problem was like some of these two-way angles are pretty wide, and I think they gained some space there. So they added a number of, and if you recall, we added these islands back when we did the last modification, and at the time, because of the leases, they weren't allowed to chew up any more parking and changes. So we're glad to see that these are getting bigger, because obviously they're really small and nothing arose in there. So, and then this aisle is actually going away. This section here, we're getting rid of this parking and we're adding green space here, so it'll be a nice buffer. And then hopefully, again, if Culver's participates, we'd love to see this shift over and then all line up, so this is not along the sidewalk, because that's somewhat of a dangerous thing. And I think we have the ability to use TIF funds to cover some of the cost of that if Culver's is willing to do so. And I think that'll definitely be an improvement to that area, because this is somewhat dangerous having that blacktop right up to the edge of the sidewalk. So, but I did check that same question you did, and I think it works with our requirements for the aisle width and everything else. So
It's fantastic. I agree with your assessment of the pass through to Culver's. It's a bit of it's a free for all.
Yes.
The guy who's the most brave has the right of way. Yeah. Commissioner Barnes.
Related question that I have. The way it appears, thanks. I guess my real question is, could the northerlymost driveway be eliminated?
Yeah, we kind of had a conversation as well. The hard part
with the truck movement, I guess part of related to that is I would expect trucks would be heading to the freeway possibly, and indeed would they be able to make a U-turn if that driveway were eliminated, because it does appear to me to be an excess driveway that's close to the intersection.
Yeah, we did look at that. I think it's the opposite of, and they can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe this is the entranceway for the semis. And so you can see they have a truck turning radius here that comes in and goes around to the back to get to behind there. So if you kind of came through here, it's going to be tough for those trucks to make that turn. So we would prefer, in fact, if you look at, I looked at the old orthos in the 80s, there was only one entrance point over here somewhere. I don't know what happened and why this was done the way it was done, but there was something done long before any of us were here that probably wasn't a good idea. So we're trying to make the best of it, I think. And the other issue is Culver's does have an ingress-egress easement through there, so, you know, it'd be tough to eliminate that. They'd have to negotiate a new easement, and so those two factors. I think if we can just shift that over, that'll help a lot, so.
I guess because there's real driver confusion out on Port Road, what with the median,
Right.
and the median treatment, and I guess I'm just seeing this as an opportunity for eliminating the driveway, that specific driveway, and recognizing that the truck movement that you're talking about simply would be circulating a little bit more internally, and maybe an internal.
The other thing that will help, if you may recall, that we're, as part of the Port Washington Road streetscaping, we're actually proposing this to be switched from a rumble strip basically to a green island. So if anybody was turning into the facility, they're going to have to use this if they're coming southbound. So that'll help a lot, I think. Yeah, this is a free-for-all, because people kind of come here and they turn in here, or they kind of do a wide U-turn and then come back through here, and this whole area is a mess. So by putting that landscape island in here, I think we can clear up a lot of that.
Any other comments or questions?
Just, I'm grateful that, well, I'm excited that the tile shop is coming, first of all. It's a little bit closer now, but also glad that that section is going to be part of the remodeling, because I think it will look really nice. I imagine that this investment hopefully will help entice a tenant into that Bed Bath & Beyond space. So thank you for being willing to do that.
That's important to reinforce. It's been a priority for the city to bring the whole site in a uniform look and feel, and it'll be really nice to be able to get that accomplished. So thank you. Any other comments or questions? Do we have a motion in a second?
Move approval per staff conditions.
Motion in a second. Any further comments or questions?
Just confirming that per staff conditions, it's got the balance of the parking lot being completed in 2024.
24,
Yep.
correct.
Great. Seeing or hearing no other questions or comments, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? That item is approved. Looking forward to it, gentlemen. Thank you. Lastly, we have announcements. The next meeting is Monday, July 25th at 6 p.m. And with that, there are no more announcements. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
Is it the 25th? Is that their meeting?